Welcome everybody, Leon here from RPG Haven, and I hope you had a good 2024 and a happy new year, cause today I'll be ranking every video game I completed in 2024. Now, I have a lot of games here, but that's because I set out as a goal to complete lots of games last year, and I did. So we'll be going through these month by month, starting with Dragon Quest VIII, Journey of the Cursed King. Yep, this is one I started early this year, and it's a tough one to rank. I would probably have to go with a solid score. Yeah, that's right, I didn't quite love this one as much as others. However, you'll have to wait for my explanation why for an upcoming video. Alright, let's move on. Fire Emblem 2, FE Gaiden. This is an NES game that, honestly, I wasn't that into. I have a video on that one, so if you'd like to watch that, I explain why in there, but the main thing is that I just found it way too grindy, so there you go. Okay, Max Payne. Now this is a solid game. I would probably rank it an A. Probably not higher than that. It's not really a genre I would ever rank higher unless it were just really amazing. However, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot. I like the bullet time stuff. I thought it had a lot of interesting ideas in the gameplay. The music's awesome. Story, obviously, I thought was interesting. So yeah, there you go. Hogwarts Legacy. Now, this is one I had started at the end of last year, and at the time, I thought it was pretty fun. I would have probably ranked it an A. However, over time, it's probably just okay. And the reason why is that the content just isn't all that interesting, like, if I'm being honest. And the characters and the cast, it's just kind of like modern day BS that I'm just not that into. However, it was nice exploring Hogwarts and all that, and I liked the combat pretty well, although it got old by the end. Alright, next up is the Sega Saturn remake of Dragon Slayer. This one I would rank as just okay. It's a classic game, obviously, and this is a remake of it, probably the best remake of it. I started with a Game Boy remake and it was rough. I do not recommend that one. In fact, I've heard it's impossible to actually finish that version of that game. So, pretty funny. Anyway, this game is not all that interesting these days. The gameplay, there just isn't too much to it. You move stuff around, bump into stuff, and you win. That's about it. Okay, Max Payne 2. I played this one pretty much right after I wrapped up Max Payne 1, and I enjoyed it, I would say, just as much, if not a little more. It's probably also an A, though. And again, I like that the combat, well, honestly, I like that the combat was, I thought, a tiny bit easier, which, man, Max Payne 1 is a tough game, so yeah, I was happy about that, honestly. And I thought the story and the music, all that, was excellent. So yeah, I would highly recommend these games. Alright, next up is New Super Mario Bros. 2. This one is just okay. This is the game where you have to gather a whole bunch of gold coins and stuff, and it felt kind of like a retread of the last one and tons of other Mario games, so I'll leave it at that. Okay, Dragon Slayer The Legend of Heroes. I played the Turbo Graphics version of this, and I quite liked it a lot. Now, is it an S? Probably not. I would put this on par with the original Final Fantasy game, or Phantasy Star, or DQ, honestly. I think it's as quality as any of those. Okay, and then the last game I played in January is Phantasy Star Gaiden. This game sucks. I hated it. It's extremely grindy, and there's hardly any characters. There's not really any content in it. It's just like ugly visuals where you're just battling a ton, and that's it. I hated it. Okay, so I played a lot of games in January. Let's go to February. where we've got almost just as many here. So let's start with Mario and Luigi Partners in Time. This game I enjoyed not as much as Superstar Saga. However, I still enjoyed it. I think the mechanic with the babies, that got kind of old after a while, having to swap out all the time, or having like ones with their own unique powers, and you gotta toss them up onto ledges and stuff. And I mean, it was okay. I thought that a lot of the puzzles just weren't all that interesting, and the combat wasn't as hooky as in the first game. I didn't think. Okay, now we're moving on to one that's very interesting. Super Mario RPG Remake. This game, I'm gonna have it temporarily here, but I don't know that it'll actually stay there. The problem with this game is that there's not a lot of content in it, and the content that is there is really not very interesting. Now, I'm just being honest, guys. I know this game has a lot of fans, and I was one of them too until I played this remake. In case you're not aware, the original Super Mario RPG was the first RPG I ever played. So it's got a fond spot in my heart, although this remake I thought was honestly just okay. And the music in it, the redone soundtrack, was honestly just kind of underwhelming. So I don't know what's up with that. Yoko Shimomura, I think you can do a little better, babe. Alright, so moving on to Tales of Phantasia. This game's an easy S, possibly an SS. Although I think S is probably appropriate. It's not like one of my very favorite RPGs ever, which is what the SS or legendary tier ought to be used for. So yeah, I'll leave it as an S right now. I love this game. I just had a retrospective on it, so if you're interested, check that out. I'll leave my thoughts there and move on to the next of February's games with Resident Evil Revelations. This game, when this game was launched, it got a lot of praise. It's like, oh yeah, we're back to classic Resident Evil. And I mean, it kind of is, but honestly, it's kind of just okay. I'm being completely honest, guys. This game's confusing layouts. It just kind of bogs on, and it wasn't for me. I thought it was okay though. I'm happy I beat it because I'm actually into the story of the RE games, believe it or not. Alright, Wario Land 3. Now this game was kind of a treat. I enjoyed it. I'd say it was pretty solid little platformer. However, nothing really amazing. I know that a lot of people love Wario Land 3. I liked Wario Land 1 the best of all, if I'm being honest. At least of the early games. My favorite Wario game overall is Wario Land 5 on the Wii. Check that game out. Okay, Digital Devil Story Megami Tensei. This is an NES game that I quite enjoyed. I probably wouldn't rank it as an A though, because it drags about halfway through and then on towards the end in a way I'm not fond of. So I'll probably leave it right there. I got a video on that one. Check it out. Okay, Phantasy Star 4. This game's a classic. I would probably rank it as an A, although I like all the other Phantasy Star games even more. I have a video on this one too, so check it out. Okay, finally, the last game I wrapped in February was Max Payne 3. Yeah, this one's tough to rank. I like its visuals and its overall vibe. I'll definitely say that. The gameplay and the combat, probably not as much, but, you know, I would probably still rank it as an A. I like this game a lot. I'm not gonna lie. Okay, now we're heading into April, because actually I did not complete any games in March, so let's move on to April. Shin Megami Tensei. This is one of my very favorite RPGs ever. Just released a video on this one too. In fact, it was the most recent one I released, so check that one out. Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Oh boy, this game. Well, it started off, I loved it. It was really, probably would have been pretty high up on my ranking of AC games after 10 hours, 15 hours. However, after 45 hours, 50 hours, I mean, I got really tired of it. I'm gonna have to rank it as an okay to meh game, because it is. It's kind of meh. I do not like the combat or the how everything has a level in these games. You don't have the insta kills. It's not really an RPG, even though it pretends it is. And also, it's just too damn huge. I mean, I had enough of exploring after I'd done about half the map, and then I was like, all right, well, I'm just going to wrap up the story now as fast as I'm able to, because I don't want to explore 100% of everything. I don't care about that, at least not the way I did with a lot of the older games. Now, I often ask myself, am I just kind of over the AC games? And possibly I am. It's possible. So yeah, I'll kind of leave it at that. I've kind of lost interest in that series as a whole, if I'm being honest. Alright, what else in April? We got Just Breed. This is a NES game that I thought was pretty great. I have a video on that one, so check it out. It only came out in Japan, so you'll have to play a fan translation if you are interested. It's a tactical strategy game, if I'm remembering the combat right, because there's this other NES RPG I checked out. But yeah, it's a tactical RPG that's actually pretty damn fun, and the story's also pretty good. Okay, so Killzone 2. I had played Killzone 1 a few years ago, and now I wanted to wrap up the rest of the games, at least until 3. Because after that, I'm not interested in the games. Now 2, I must admit, I thought was just okay. It's not really my style of game, if I'm being totally honest. Yeah, I mean, it was more like, okay, I'm just gonna speed through this just to kind of knock it off of my list. Now, that's not to suggest I didn't enjoy it. I did. It's just not really a genre I'm super into, so there you go. Okay, Xenoblade Chronicles 3. This one I would say is pretty solid. I can't rank it any higher, and honestly, I want to rank it even lower, but that might be being too harsh. I mean, it's a Xenoblade game still. I love Xenoblade. However, I like all the other Xenoblade games way more. I'm talking way more, y'all. And this one just let me down, I would say. I didn't like that there wasn't a ton of interesting cities or, I mean, honestly, characters or locations. It just felt like kind of a retread with a less interesting story, which kind of sucks because I was hoping it was like the last of the Xenoblade games. It would wrap everything up in an awesome way, and not really. Not really. However, its standalone DLC sequel, Future Redeemed, was awesome, and I would probably rank it as an A. Not as high as like Xenoblade 2 or Xenoblade 1 even, but I thought it was much more my pace, much more what I was interested in out of Xenoblade. It provided me that. Now, I had skipped over a few here because I wanted to talk about that one. This here, if you can't read it, is Xenoblade Chronicles Future Connected, which is the sequel to the original Xenoblade game, which I played earlier this year, finally, and I thought it was kind of just okay. I suppose I would rank it around where Xeno 3 is, though. Okay, we're into the month of May now, and starting with Killzone 3. I liked Killzone 3 quite a bit more than 2, so I'll rank it as an A. Actually, probably as a B, if I'm being honest. The combat is really tight, it's a lot of fun, but, you know, it doesn't really stand out too much. Sorry. Okay, next up is the original Doom. This game's awesome and probably an instant S tier, I would say. Possibly A, but no, I think S is probably more where it belongs, if I'm being honest, because, like, this is one of those games where I started up, I played it, and I hit the final boss, the last shot on him, and I was like, oh, I stayed up all night and I played that whole game. Now, you might ask, why is it on your list here? Like, you never played Doom before? Well, I have, when I was young. However, this is a list of games that I finished last year. And so, yeah, this is the first time I ever played Doom all the way through and actually beat the final boss. So, yeah, that was pretty cool. All right, let's see. This is the Mysterious Murasame Castle. This was a Japan-only game until Nintendo released it on the Switch Online in the West as well. And honestly, it's just okay. It's kind of like a weird, like, action-y, platformer-esque, if I even remember right. I mean, it didn't really stand out in my head much, so yeah, it's okay. Alright, Saints Row the Third Remastered. This game I enjoyed. I probably would not rank it as an A. It's not really my genre or even my sense of humor necessarily. However, I enjoyed the combat. I thought it was pretty fun. Kind of nice to play a game from that era. And yeah, it was my first Saints Row game. Alright, Bahamut Lagoon. This is one of those mysterious JRPGs you've kind of heard mentioned like once in a while. Ooh, it's like one of the best games ever, and it was only in Japan. However, this is not really one of those. It is okay at very best, I would say. It's extremely easy. It's a tactical JRPG where you can kind of train up your dragon characters who act as super units on the battlefield, basically. Yeah, it's really easy. There's not much story. I would not recommend it. Okay, Silent Hill on PS1. And yeah, we're still in the month of May here. I played a lot of games in the early half of this year, that's for sure. This game I probably would not rank as an A. Again, it's not really the kind of game I'm that into, and I like Resident Evil way more. Yeah, it had some nice creepy atmosphere though that kind of worked, and yeah, I mean, it's not bad or anything. I thought it was enjoyable, but that's really all I got. Okay, so another Japan-only NES game, or Famicom game if you will, Chaos World. This one I would probably rank as a pretty solid game. Maybe not that high. No, I enjoyed it, but maybe it's just okay. I mean, it's a really standard JRPG. I'll make a video on it eventually, so I don't want to talk about it too much. Let's move on to Yoshi's Crafted World on Switch. So this game, I can't rank it any lower than solid, probably. It's probably at the end of that tier, though. Now, I'm not ranking all these in order, but that one I am. It's, kind of a snooze. I mean, there's a lot of optional items and stuff that make it harder, but, you know, it's another Nintendo platformer that felt like a lot of other games I've already played. So, let's move on to Resistance 3, an awesome FPS that's easily S tier, maybe even higher, but probably not. I'd probably rank it as an S. Yeah, it takes place in the heartland of America, at least most of it does, and it's a lot of fun. It's just a really awesome story that I wasn't expecting, especially after Resistance 1 and 2, which are just kind of generic military games. Yeah, no, this one's actually pretty awesome, and I don't really want to spoil anything, so check it out. Yeah, it's one of the best shooter campaigns I've ever played, for sure. Okay, Shantae for the Game Boy Color. This is a game I had when I was a kid, and I played a lot and just never beat. And after playing it again here, on an emulator this time, I understand why. This is a very hard game. Like, I struggled with it. I mean, I got through it, but golly gosh, it's tough. I also wouldn't call it very strong. In fact, it's probably just okay. Maybe a B. It's just, you know, there's not much to it, and the other games are way more fun. So let's move on to Soul Blazer. Solo Blada, as they call it in Japan. Yeah, this game's pretty fun. I'd probably rank it as an A. And we'll rank its cousin, Illusion of Gaia, here as well. The same developer. Okay, maybe not an A. I'd probably rank them one tier lower. They're not that strong. But they're just like action RPG-ish. I wouldn't really call them RPGs, although a lot of people do, so whatever. Yeah, I'd probably leave it right there. They're entertaining games. I would recommend them to almost anyone. Moving into June, we got Radia Senki Raimahen, which is yet another Japan-only NES game or Famicom game. that I actually rather enjoyed and I would probably rank as an A. I feel like one of these ought to be moved down a little bit, but I'm gonna leave them there for now, because it's my list. I do what I want, yeah. So I am going to have a video on this one coming up very soon, so I won't comment on it. Let's move on to Metro 2033 Redux. This is the remake or like remaster of the original Metro game. It's an FPS that takes place entirely in a Russian metro, and that is to its detriment, I think. I thought this game was just okay. Yeah, you're just in a like underground metro area almost the whole game, and it got really old. Like I don't know what to say. I think a lot of the appeal of this game especially is playing it on like the hardcore mode, which, I mean, it was an option. I chose to play it as like a standard shooter game though. So maybe that's why I didn't enjoy it as much. However, my counter argument is that, well, if I had to do all the survival mechanics, I wouldn't have been interested and I wouldn't have checked it out at all. Okay, Ys, the Ark of Napishtim, Ys 6. This game I thought was just okay. Again, it's because I played the original PS2 version, which has a lot of flaws. Like, you can't warp, which is really, really annoying in a game where you have to backtrack constantly. And also, the combat and the enemies and stuff just weren't that interesting. The story was neat, but I don't know that that's enough. Okay, next up, Shin Megami Tensei Digital Devil Saga. Now, if you haven't heard of this game, it's what's actually part one of a duology of games that was released on the PS2 in the early 2000s or like the mid 2000s, around the time when Persona 3 came out. And yeah, this game is pretty enjoyable. I think right there is pretty solid. I've talked about that one in a past video, so let's move on. Fire Emblem The Binding Blade. This was the first game I wrapped in July, and oh man, I'll rank it with the other two GBA games because I played all three of them this past year. That's right, I pretty much played them all in a row, but yeah, let's rank these. FE6, probably my favorite out of these, along with 8. And then probably 7 was my least favorite. But I'd probably rank them all in the same tier if I'm being totally honest. I'm not as high on these games as a lot of other FE fans are. They're just, I don't know, they're a little too basic. I like having the better visuals of the later consoles, or even like the SNES games. I think they look better. All right, let's move on because I don't want to get massacred by my commenters. Okay, next up we got Fire Emblem 3, Mystery of the Emblem. Now this game I love. I'd probably rank it as an A. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Probably a high A if I were actually ordering these, which again, I'm not. Yeah, this game's awesome. It just starts off with a remake of FE1, and then it just segues into its own story, and it's just awesome. I like the mechanics in this game. I think they're extremely tight, and it just works well. Okay, into August. Super Mario Bros. The Lost Levels, aka the original Super Mario Bros. 2. Yep, I had never played this one. I'm happy I did, although, look, maybe it's a case that you had to be there back then. I thought it was just okay. Like, I don't really care about this game. Like, you know, it's just not really anything special in my mind after having all these, like, ROM hacks and stuff. It's pretty much a remix of the original SMB1, which I'm not really asking for. On a brighter note, I have also played Yoshi's Island 2, which I don't love as much as a lot of others, I suppose. I thought it was pretty solid, but that's about it. I think the original Super Mario World is way better, that's for sure. But anyway, let's wrap up the month of August with Final Fantasy VI. This one's a beast. It's a game I need to record a video on, and unfortunately, it also ends up in this tier along with Dragon Quest VIII. Now, you could probably talk me into an A, but this isn't the video for that. you'll have to hold on until I release my retrospective on FF6. Alright, let's move on to Dragon Quest. Wait, which one is this? Oh yeah, I remember, Dragon Quest 6. Now, this is a game I had already beaten 2 years ago in 2023. However, this year I decided I wanted to check out the SNES version of it, because I had never actually played either of the SNES games, and I wanted to check one of them out, and I'd already done my video on 5, so I was like, okay, well I'll check out 6 on the SNES, and that way when I do a video on that one, I can talk about the SNES version. And also it's because it's easier to record footage off of those versions. This game I enjoy quite a lot. It's probably an A, and I'll explain why when I make a video on it. Okay, now here's an interesting one. This is another Japan-only game. Oh, I should be scrolling these down some just to make sure you can see. Yeah, okay. This is our chart here so far. Sorry about that. Okay, yeah, here. I'll leave it right here. I think that's good. So, Sweet Home. This is a Japan-only game that Alright, well, it's a very strange game. It's kind of like a 2D Resident Evil, and in fact, Resident Evil was based off this game, or at least heavily inspired by. And I definitely enjoyed it. It's very obtuse. It can be hard to tell what you're even supposed to do next. It's a very clunky game in that you gotta swap characters a lot. You gotta carry items around. It's very like RE0 in 2D. So you're either into that or you're not. I am, however, there's not really much to it, and it kind of got old by the end. So we'll leave it there for now. Maybe even lower, honestly, but I think that's probably fine. It's pretty solid. I can understand why it has its fans. We'll put it that way. Okay, and now we are moving into October with Energy Breaker. This is a SNES game that was only released in Japan. It's actually pretty sweet. It's a turn-based tactical RPG, kind of like the FE games, honestly. And this one actually has a lot of story. It's technically tied to the Lufia games, although I haven't played any of those games yet, so I can't comment on that too much. But what's here is actually a lot of fun. Like, you get a ton of character interaction. Honestly, I thought maybe a little too much. But hey, if you're into the world of Lufia, then maybe you'll get more out of this than I did. So I'm excited to check out the main games and see what they're all about. Okay, into November. Next up is Ys 7 for PSP. This game was pretty cool. I probably wouldn't rank it as an A because Ys 8 pretty much copies everything that it does, except it's way better. In fact, I will rank Ys 8 right now. I would rank it as an A. Yeah, so these games add the party-based combat where you can swap between 3 different party members at any time, and you have them all out battling at once. So it's pretty neat, but Ys 7 feels kind of like an undercooked version of 8. And if you've played both of those games, I bet you understand why. 8 just is way more fleshed out. It's a Vita game originally, then I played it on PS4. And yeah, it's a ton of fun. Music in that game is fantastic. So I can't wait to make a video on these guys. I'll have a lot more thoughts at that time. So okay, let's move on to World of Final Fantasy. This is kind of a throwaway FF spinoff, if you ask me. It's just okay. You can catch and control monsters kind of like a Pokemon game, except you have to stack them on top of your own characters, which is kind of strange, although it leads to some interesting gameplay, but nothing really to write home about, and the story is just totally uninteresting, so that's where I'd leave that. Okay, the remake of Mafia 1 is fantastic, probably even S tier, I mean possibly. Now this one is ostensibly a GTA clone, but it's not really. Like, there's no reason to really explore or screw around. It's really all about the story, and a lot of the story is driving, which I kind of enjoyed. I don't know what to say. The remake updates all of the visuals. It's a total ground-up remake, and they pulled it off well, man. The guys at Hangar 13. So I would highly recommend Mafia 1 to anyone. And yeah, check out the remake. That's the version you want. Although the original is like tough as hell. So if you can handle the worse the voice acting, then maybe check out the PS2 original. Okay, now Digital Devil Saga or Story Megami Tensei 2. This is the second game in the Megami Tensei franchise, and I liked it way more than Megami Tensei 1, so it's an easy A, I would say. Yeah, it's awesome. I played the Kyu-Yaku Megami Tensei version, which was on the SNES. Again, it's Japan only, however, there are translations out there. And yeah, I just really enjoyed the story in this one. There's actually a ton of story in it. You're playing out a biblical, like, angels and demons story, basically, and I won't spoil it, but it's a lot of fun. So that, my friends, is all of the games I have completed last year. However, I tossed in a few more at the bottom. A few more I'm playing right now I just wanted to comment on. So Mafia 2, I'm almost at the end of that one, and I must say, I don't know why everyone hypes it up over Mafia 1. I like Mafia 1 way more. I thought that Mafia 2 was just okay. I mean, it's pretty cool. It's just kind of the same game again. So I don't know if all the Mafia 2 fans just hadn't played Mafia 1 or if they hadn't played the remake of it. Because, man, that remake of Mafia 1 is so good. So good. So I'll leave it there now. Although I've got a few more chapters left, so we'll see. I'm also playing the most recent Doom game, which I'm pretty early in, so I won't rank it too high, although right now I would call it an A. It's pretty fun. The music's awesome. I love that heavy metal, but other than that, I don't got too much to really say. Pikmin 4, this is a series I love, but have kind of lost interest in a little bit over the years. Pikmin 3, I thought was a step backward. I don't really even know why. It's just kind of like, I thought it was easy and too like handholdy. And I'm only a few hours into the latest one here, but man, I feel the same way about it. Holy cow, it is a slog so far. So I'm hoping it picks up. It hasn't yet, so I'll leave it here right now. Then finally, Songs of Conquest. This is a Heroes of Might and Magic 3 ripoff, and I say that with most love, because I love Heroes 3, and there's not a lot of ripoffs of that game. Yeah, it's pretty charming. There's not a ton of content in it, and there's not a lot of towns, or factions in other words, which I wish it had more. There's only 4 right now, and I think Heroes 3 has had like 8. So they could add a few more, but I don't know if that'll ever happen, honestly. This game's a few years old now, I'm pretty sure. So anyway, y'all, there you have it. I just wanted to take some time to rank every video game I had completed last year. And I thank you all for watching. I've been Leon from RPG Haven. See y'all.